Admiral Exervik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloodfang, and looked at the vast armada stretching across the void. 1,000 warships, each bristling with weapons powerful enough to shatter continents, waited for his command. They had come from the Zorith Dominion, the most feared power in the galaxy. To do what no one had dared before attack Earth, reports from their spies had painted the planet as primitive, slow to develop and weak compared to the great empires. Exervik had promised his leaders that this would be the fastest victory in their history at the edge of the Sol system. Their long-range sensors scanned the black emptiness. Pluto's frozen world drifted silently nearby as the alien fleet advanced. The first scans of Earth's defenses returned almost laughable results: satellites, slow-moving ships, and nothing that could match the Dominion's firepower. The alien crews laughed and traded bets on how many minutes the battle would take. Exervik was confident. In his mind, the humans would barely understand they were under attack before their planet burned. But as the fleet crossed Pluto's orbit, something strange happened. The sensor screens began to show shapes, ghostly outlines of ships that appeared and then vanished instantly. They were faint, almost like shadows in space, and moved in ways no normal craft could. The sensor teams tried to lock onto them, but the readings slipped away like smoke. "Sensor ghosts," one officer said with a grin. "Human tricks to scare us." The bridge filled with mocking laughter. To prove the point, Exervik ordered one of his fastest destroyers, the Vorn, Claw, to chase one of the phantom signals. The sleek ship accelerated at full burn, engines blazing bright, closing the distance in seconds. And then it was gone. No explosion, no debris, no emergency signal, just gone. The tracking systems showed it one moment, and the next it was as if it had never existed. The bridge crew went silent for a moment, then someone suggested it might have been a mechanical failure. Exervik accepted the excuse without comment, though a faint unease flickered in his mind. The fleet pressed forward. Earth grew larger on the main view screens, a blue and green world floating in the black. But as they approached, the planet's surface seemed to shimmer, as if covered by a thin black mist. It wasn't an atmosphere effect, and it wasn't a glitch. The shimmer moved, twisting like liquid shadows across continents and oceans. The science officers ran tests, but every reading came back impossible energy levels that didn't match any known weapon, and gravitational fluctuations far stronger than any planet should produce. The closer they came, the more their instruments faltered. Long-range scans began to fail, replaced with static and strange pulses. Communications crackled with bursts of sound that almost resembled voices, but too distorted to understand. Exervik's jaw tightened. The Dominion had fought many worlds before, but nothing about Earth's behavior matched any battle he knew. It wasn't defending, it was watching. Then, the shimmer across the planet's surface shifted, forming faint geometric patterns that spread over the globe like a living network. No one could explain what it was. One officer suggested it might be a planetary shield activating. Another said it was a massive illusion to hide the real defenses. But the science team reported no known shield. Technology could produce those patterns, especially not without visible generators. Exervik gave the order to prepare weapons. The fleet's massive plasma cannons powered up, each one capable of tearing a city apart in seconds. The attack would be swift and overwhelming, exactly as planned. Yet, as the final firing sequence began, the ghost signals returned, this time closer and in greater numbers. Dozens of strange shapes moved between the alien ships, invisible to the naked eye but strong enough to bend sensor readings out of shape. The crew could feel a pressure in the air, like the weight of unseen eyes watching from every angle. One by one, the fleet's targeting systems began to flicker. Weapon locks vanished and reappeared. Some ships reported that their aim was shifting without command. Others swore they saw movement in the dark, tiny flashes of metal gliding past their windows, too fast to track. A nervous murmur spread among the crews, but Exervik kept his voice calm, ignored the distractions. They are nothing but human tricks. And yet, the feeling of being hunted would not go away. The bridge lights dimmed for a second, though no power fault was detected. The hum of the engine seemed to deepen, like the sound of some massive thing breathing nearby. Then, without warning, every display on the Bloodfang's bridge froze. For a single heartbeat, the screens turned black. When they lit up again, the entire planet of Earth filled the view. But now the shimmer was gone, placed by a clear image of cities and oceans. It should have been reassuring. But every officer on the bridge felt the same sudden chill, because in that moment, it felt like the planet itself was looking back at them. Admiral Exervik ignored the unease and raised his voice for all ships. To hear Dominion fleet prepare to strike, let the galaxy remember today as the fastest victory in our history. His words were bold, but deep inside, a voice he refused to listen to whispered that this battle would not go as planned. Somewhere in the black void ahead, something unseen was waiting, and it was not afraid of them. The order to fire was given, and 1,000 alien warships unleashed their fury. Blinding streams of plasma shot across space, burning brighter than any star. The weapons were aimed to tear through Earth's atmosphere and reduce the planet's surface to molten rock. The alien crews expected to see a glorious explosion, light so great that even distant colonies would speak of it for generations. But instead, something impossible happened. The plasma bolts slowed. They didn't stop instantly, but they curved, their paths bending like rivers redirected by invisible walls. Every shot missed Earth completely, drifting away into the void. As if space itself had decided they would not hit. The bridge of the Bloodfang filled with confused voices. Weapons officers swore their aim was perfect. Targeting systems confirmed direct hits, yet none of it mattered. The planet was untouched. Then came the second shock, one that made even the most fearless warriors freeze. Without warning, the Dominion fleet's targeting computers began to reset. At first, it was random, losing lock for a few seconds before reconnecting. But soon the systems were locking onto new targets. Dominion ships, entire formations, suddenly found their weapons aimed at their own allies. Panic spread through the fleet. Captains shouted over comms, demanding to know who had changed their orders. Others accused human hackers of infiltrating their systems, but the Dominion's cyber defenses were the strongest in the galaxy. No enemy had ever broken them. No one should have been able to touch them, especially not from such a distance. And yet, one by one, warships opened fire on each other. Massive blasts tore through the black, smashing into holes that were never meant to take friendly fire. In minutes, 6 Dominion ships were crippled, their wreckage spinning in silence. Then a voice cut through every channel at once. It was clear, human, and calm. Should have stayed away. Every Dominion crew froze. The words had not come from any signal they could trace. It was as if the voice had been spoken directly inside their minds, bypassing every piece of technology. It didn't shout. It didn't threaten. It simply stated a truth. Exervik tried to reassert control. He ordered all ships to fall back into defensive formation and prepare for a counterattack. But before the fleet could move, the sensors lit up with a reading unlike anything they had ever seen. Something massive was approaching, not from Earth, but from behind them. Gravitational alarms screamed as the Dominion fleet began to feel a pull. It wasn't strong enough to drag them completely, but it was there, growing by the second. The source was still out of visual range, yet the readings showed an object of impossible size. Some officers thought it must be a moon moving out of orbit. Others whispered about weapons so large they could warp space itself. One by one, the Dominion ships turned to face the threat. Out of the darkness, shapes began to appear, long, angular silhouettes that seemed to drink in the light around them. No engine glow, no visible weapons, no signs of life, yet they moved with impossible speed, closing the distance in seconds. Fleet's communications filled with urgent chatter. The newcomers didn't match any known human design. In fact, they didn't match anything in the galactic database. The Dominion had records of every enemy they'd ever fought, but these ships were not in those records. They seemed to be carved from the void itself, as if space had given them form. Contact. One captain yelled over the comms. Unidentified craft surrounding us. The alien fleet tightened formation, ready to fire on the newcomers. But before anyone could act, the scythes fang. One of the Dominion's fastest cruisers suddenly jerked sideways in space as if grabbed by an invisible hand and then vanished. It didn't explode. It didn't leave debris. It was simply gone. A wave of silence swept the comm channels. No one spoke, because no one understood what they had just seen. Even Admiral Exervik stood still, watching the place where the cruiser had been. Then the ghost shapes from before returned. They were everywhere, now filling the spaces between the Dominion ships, moving too fast for the eye to follow. The sensors couldn't track them, but the crews could feel them. Pressure in their minds like the air before a storm. The human voice returned, softer this time, almost like a whisper. This is only the beginning. And then the Black Fleet moved. The black shapes closed in without sound, their movements sharp and precise like predators circling prey. They didn't fire. They didn't broadcast warnings. They simply glided between the Dominion warships, impossible to track for more than a heartbeat before they vanished into the void again. The crews tried to scan them, but every reading came back blank. No power signatures, no engine emissions, no life signs. It was as if the ships were empty, or not really ships at all. The bridge of the Bloodfang, Admiral Exervik, watched as his tactical display turned into chaos. Red warning markers flashed everywhere. Its own ships were colliding while trying to evade the strange intruders. He ordered all weapons to fire, even without a lock, and the void lit up with plasma fire. But the Black Fleet moved with unnatural speed, slipping through the shots like shadows avoiding light. Not a single one was hit. Then came the first kill. A Dominion destroyer, the Iron Spear, suddenly began spinning violently, its engines flaring out of control. The crew's screams came over the comms before the ship folded in on itself, collapsing like paper crushed by an invisible fist. In less than a second, it was going to no explosion, no wreckage, just an empty patch of space where it had been. The panic was spreading fast. Some captains began breaking formation, trying to escape. But those who turned to flee found the black shapes already waiting in their path, blocking every route. No matter where the Dominion ships moved, the strangers were there first. Moving faster than even the fastest Dominion interceptors, one officer on the Bloodfang gasped as he stared. At his display, "Admiral, they're inside our perimeter, all of them." Exervik didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the largest of the black vessels, now drifting directly in front of his flagship. It had no markings, no windows, nothing to suggest where a bridge or weapons might be, yet he felt something, an overwhelming sense that whatever commanded that ship was aware of him. And unimpressed, without warning, a ripple spread across the black ship's surface, like dark water disturbed by a stone. Out of that ripple came something smaller, single human figure, in an old-fashioned spacesuit, the kind worn centuries ago. The figure drifted toward the Bloodfang without any propulsion, crossing the distance in seconds. The bridge crew stared in shock as the figure passed, straight through the hull as if it wasn't there. Alarms blared, but there was no breach detected. A moment later, the figure was standing inside the bridge, its visor reflecting the cold light of the consoles. No one moved, no one spoke. The human raised a hand and gently touched the control panel in front of the weapons officer. Every system on the Bloodfang instantly shut down. The human figure tilted its head slightly, as if studying the crew, and then vanished, simply gone, leaving no trace it had ever been there. Seconds later, power returned to the Bloodfang. But the controls now displayed a single line of text in human language. This is only the first layer of defense. The message was repeated across the entire Dominion fleet. Every ship, from the smallest frigate to the largest battleship, now had the same warning glowing on its main screens. Captains shouted for translators, but many of their crew already understood the meaning. The humans weren't fighting yet. They were playing, testing. Exervik felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. If this was the first layer, then what waited beyond it? The black ships began to spread out, forming a perfect sphere. Around the Dominion fleet, it was a cage, and every alien aboard knew it, for the first time in his career. Admiral Exervik felt something he had never known on the battlefield: fear. not of dying, but of being erased, forgotten, and swallowed by something far older and more dangerous than his people could imagine. Then the human voice returned, its time deep and cold, echoing across every channel. Now we begin. The cage started to close. The black sphere tightened around the Dominion fleet. Each alien ship, now trapped in a shrinking prison of darkness. The strange vessels moved without sound, without visible weapons. Yet every captain could feel the pressure in their minds growing heavier. Crews whispered about hearing footsteps in empty corridors, about voices speaking their names when no one else was nearby. Even the most hardened warriors began to grip their weapons, as if expecting an unseen intruder to appear at any moment. It started with small, terrifying moments. On the Vorn's edge, a lieutenant reported seeing a human soldier helmet cracked. Suit scorched walk straight through a bulkhead as if it were smoke. The soldier didn't attack, simply stared for a moment, then reached out and touched the ship's navigation console. Instantly, the entire vessel lost control and drifted helplessly. On the Fang of Zoroth, crew members swore they heard the sound of boots on metal coming from the walls themselves. One officer fired his sidearm into thin air and watched the bullets flatten against something invisible before vanishing. Across the fleet, systems failed one by one. Targeting arrays powered down, weapons jammed. Engines shut off mid-burn, leaving ships spinning in space. And still, the black ships never fired a single shot. They didn't need to. Then, something new appeared on the Dominion sensors. Older-looking human ships, emerging from behind the Black Fleet. Their hulls were scarred, their designs outdated compared to modern galactic warcraft. The Dominion crews laughed at the sight until the first one fired. A single pulse of light struck a Dominion cruiser and sliced through it as if it were made of paper. The ship didn't explode, it simply broke apart in silence, its pieces drifting like ash. Another human ship targeted a battleship, and in less than 2 seconds, the massive vessel was reduced to nothing but molten debris. There was no visible buildup, no charging of weapons, just instant destruction. Exervik realized the truth too late. The Black Fleet had never been Earth's main defense. They were the gatekeepers, holding the Dominion in place until the real weapons arrived. And the so-called outdated ships weren't old, they were disguised. Their hulls hid the most advanced and lethal technology the Admiral had ever seen. The Dominion fired desperately now. The human ships moved faster than their fastest missiles, appearing and disappearing in unpredictable patterns. Every time the aliens thought they had a target locked, the ship was already behind them, delivering another silent, precise kill. On. The Bloodfang Exervix comes officer shouted in shock. "Admiral, these aren't even manned." The scans were clear. There were no life signs aboard the attacking human vessels. They were automated. The humans hadn't risked a single life in this battle. The Dominion was losing 2 unmanned ships and AI-controlled war machines as the realization spread through the fleet. A private transmission came to the Bloodfang. The screen flickered, and a single human face appeared calm, expressionless, eyes cold. The voice was low, steady, and final. "You came to write history," the human said. "Now you'll be part of our warning." The transmission ended, and immediately, every black ship in the sphere began to move inward, closing the cage completely. The Dominion fleet's remaining ships were trapped shoulder to shoulder, nowhere to run, their weapons useless. And from somewhere deep within the black wall, a new signal pulsed like the heartbeat of something impossibly large and very, very awake. Exervik gripped the arms of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. He had thought this would be the fastest victory in galactic history. Now he feared it would become the fastest defeat the galaxy had ever seen. And Earth hadn't even begun to fight with its full strength. It was over faster than any battle in the Dominion's long and bloody history. The Black Fleet tightened its grip. And in less than 12 minutes, the Great Armada that had crossed half the galaxy to burn Earth was nothing more than drifting. Wreckage. Ships vanished without explosions, crushed by forces the Dominion could not detect. Others broke apart silently, their pieces scattering like dust. Entire formations disappeared from sensors as if they had never existed. On the blood, Fang Admiral Exervik could only watch as the fleet he had promised would bring glory to his people was erased ship by ship. No enemy war cries, no demands for surrender, just cold, efficient destruction. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it stopped. The Black Fleet didn't finish them all.
Out.
One ship, a single battered Dominion frigate, was left intact. Its engines flickered weakly, hull torn and scarred, but it could still move. A channel opened, and a human voice filled the bridge of every remaining Dominion vessel. "Run," it said simply, "and tell them." There was no explanation of what to tell, no list of demands, just that command. The black sphere parted like an opening door, leaving a narrow path through the void. The surviving frigate limped forward, its crew silent, knowing they had been spared not out of mercy, but as a message. As the frigate passed through the gap, its crew saw Earth one last time. The strange black shimmer returned to cover the planet, flowing across it like a living shield. The human warships drifted back into the shadows, vanishing from sight. The Black Fleet turned away, their silent forms melting into the darkness, as if they had never been there. When the survivors reached Dominion space, their leaders did not believe them. They accused the crews of lying, of fleeing without honor. But then the recordings were shown grainy, trembling footage of black ships moving faster than the eye could follow, of human war machines erasing warships in seconds, of that final, chilling order, "Run, and tell them." Even the most arrogant among the Dominion's council felt the weight of those words. They understood what it meant. That the humans had not fought with their full power. They had shown only a fraction of their strength, enough to end a 1,000-ship armada in less than 12 minutes. In the months that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. Merchants, mercenaries, and diplomats all whispered the same warning in dimly lit starports and shadowed meeting halls. Attacking Earth wasn't just suicide. It was the fastest way to make your species disappear from history. And somewhere, far from prying eyes, Earth's Black Fleet waited in silence, knowing the galaxy had heard the message loud and clear. Next time, there would be no survivors,